Now joining me live from Khartoum is Hamid Al-Hassan. He's one of the Nigerians there that was stranded and is also trying to help coordinate evacuation of Nigerians back to Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining me, Hamid.
Much.
Can you hear me, Hamid?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me on the program.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so what's the update now? I know that earlier on you had mentioned that evacuation had started, but later in the day we heard that buses that were supposed to convey Nigerians from Khartoum to Egypt were grounded by the company for one reason or the other. Bring up to speed with what is happening there right now as it pertains to the evacuation of Nigerians from Khartoum.
Exactly. Well, today we actually got about 29 buses. That is from what I got from NEMA, that will be evacuating students from Khartoum to Egypt. So most of the buses actually came here to the campus where I'm situated right now, which is within the campus of the International University of Africa. And then a few of the buses went to the other secondary campus. And then we all boarded the bus. We boarded the bus, we sat in the bus. We thought the buses were arranging themselves and sorting out the gate or something like that. But then getting to like 5 p.m. after sitting in the bus since about 3 p.m., we discovered that nothing is going on. So I came down and started asking around. I talked to the drivers and they told me that they were waiting for payment. So I had to now call back to NEMA because I have been in contact with him in these few days to report to him directly to see how he can sort things out. And he told me that the payment was actually made last night through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs with one PAMSEC. And he actually made it clear to me that he was actually talking to the PAMSEC when the payment was made last night. That really broke my heart, because if the payment was made last night to the company in Nigeria, which has a subsidiary here in Sudan, then why are we stranded? Why are we not moving out? As I'm speaking to you right now, we've all we are now off the bus, and I'm back into the mosque as usual, which is actually my post, and that is where I'm talking to you from right now.
Okay, yeah. With what is happening right now, like Nigerian government said payment was made last night, being Friday, and Saturday 5 p.m. and more. You're saying that you're still stranded. What do you think is responsible for that? And moving forward, what is Nigerian authorities supposed to do to get you guys out of Khartoum for Egypt, awaiting the flight that will convey you guys back to Nigeria?
Well, you see, to be very frank, for you to actually understand what is happening right now with regards to the arrangement with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, I have to take you back to the initial, the root of this problem, actually. So the arrangement was made between NEMA and the Embassy of Nigeria here in Sudan to actually evacuate us. And the agreement that was hashed out between NEMA and the Embassy of Sudan was that the whole evacuation program will cost about $1.2 million, okay? And the embassy clearly stated that there has to be a down payment of $400,000 to provide 40 buses that will evacuate students from Khartoum to Egypt. On completion of all the evacuation, the balance of $800,000 will be paid. And they got the $400,000. The embassy told us they got the $400,000. And all of a sudden, they just came in with 13 buses, and took students out of the university. The second day, we actually thought that more buses are going to come. Nothing came, and that was when we actually started. I started this campaign, because I realized that nothing is coming from the Nigerian embassy, and they even stopped showing up. Actually, they were not picking their calls. Nothing was happening, and that is why I decided to take them public. Because when I do that, at least we can get some reactions from the public and concerned citizens.
Okay. Now, we've heard stories about, because of these challenges that you've mentioned and you've seen on ground, we heard stories about state governments individually coming to evacuate citizens from their various states. What was the update on that? And we also heard that the ones that left yesterday, was the update on their movement? Have they reached Egypt, awaiting conveyance to Nigeria, as it were?
To be very frank with you, everything is just a big ball of mess at this moment, because like you mentioned, yes, some state governments are coming to pick some of their citizens here, but actually they're not picking all the citizens. They're only picking citizens that are under state scholarships. Can you imagine that? So anybody from, let's say, Kaduna State or Kano State that is not under Kano State scholarship, and the governor actually sends a bus to pick them up, then if you're not under the state scholarship, you're just grounded, and it doesn't really make sense to me whatsoever, and it's very difficult. Let me just give you how stupid the embassy actually dealt with this issue. Imagine a situation whereby, for example, I tell you that I want to provide you with, let's say, 40 bags of rice, for example. And then I tell you that these 40 bags of rice will cost you 1,200 naira, okay? And then I tell you that, look, you pay me 400 naira and I will start bringing in these bags of rice. After completion of delivery of the 40 bags of rice, then you can pay me the balance, which is 800 naira. Then I started bringing you these bags of rice. Then as soon as the number got to 13 bags of rice, I just lock up and I tell you that, everything is done. Can you imagine that? I mean, we've had a contract and everything. This is precisely what the embassy of Nigeria actually did to us. Yeah.
Okay, yes, I actually sympathize with you guys a lot. So briefly, before we leave, I just like to feel like a pulse of Nigerians around there. How are you feeling? And moving forward, what do you think should be done in specific terms in order to change the narrative and get you guys out of Khartoum and Sudan generally as soon as possible?
To start with, when you're talking about humanitarian disaster, you have different kinds of humanitarian disasters. You have humanitarian disasters that actually happen inside the country. You have those that happen outside the country. Like with our case, for example, the ones that happen outside the country, I think every Nigerian embassy should always have a plan on ground, because anything can happen at any time. Trust me, nobody expected this to happen. On Friday, for example, I signed a contract, a very, very juicy contract. I went back home, slept very well. Even before sleeping, I was actually already sharing the money that I was going to get on my mind. And woke up Saturday morning to gunshots and bomb blasts. You can imagine that. So anything can happen at any time. I just can't imagine why an embassy by itself cannot set aside a kind of account to make sure that just in case anything goes south, we can swiftly move out, So that is that. Secondly, I don't know. People seem to lose their mind when they see money. They don't care about other people's life. Even right now, as I'm speaking to you, for example, you see that the embassy staffs are not around with us. The student union is just not functional. Nothing is happening, and that is why I've actually taken this to on myself, upon my shoulders, to see that these things have been made. The buses that came in today actually came in due to my effort. You can imagine that, And now they are telling us that payment is still pending, which is actually very, very sad.
We're glad that you're making those efforts. We commend your effort. But earlier on, I did mention about the update on people who evacuate or who were evacuated earlier, as in last night. Do you have updates on where their journey is like right now, whether they have reached Egypt or not?
Yes, the last update we had, especially for the 13 students that evacuated from Khartoum, was 6 out of the 13 buses actually got stranded in the middle of the road. for the same reason why we are stranded here right now. They were claiming that the embassy didn't actually pay them any money. You can imagine. At the end of the day, the student had to now put their heads together and negotiate with the drivers and hand over their passports to the driver so that the driver can now convey them to the border. But even conveying them to the border, in order to protect his interest or protect their interest, the drivers are not conveying them to the border that was meant for them to be conveyed. This is what I heard last. You know, they were taking them to another part of the border pending when the payment is made. Right now, especially with all the heat that we have here, it's very difficult for me to even focus to understand or to know what their fate is. I was actually hoping that on getting to the border and meeting the DG of NEMA physically, I would be able to now see what is going on and see how we can coordinate and get people out.
I really appreciate your efforts and all other people there who are trying to get Nigerians out. And I'm sure that we are hopeful that the Nigerian government will make sure that things are done right so they can get you guys out of that place as soon as possible. Thank you very much for joining me,
Exactly.
Hamid.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.